Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing one of their past projects. We will let you decide if it was good or bad or just plain ugly. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is the 1% rule. If you are looking to purchase your first rental property, a great tool to apply is the 1% rule. The 1% rule of real estate investing measures the price of the investment property against the gross income it will generate. For a potential investment to pass the 1% rule, its monthly rent must be equal to or no less than 1% of the purchase price. All you do is multiply the purchase price of the property by 0.01. If the property needs repairs, you must add the repair cost to the purchase price. Here's an example. You are purchasing a property for $250,000 and it needs $50,000 in repairs. You add those numbers together and then multiply it by 0.01 to get $3,000. If your rent is equal to or more than $3,000, you just passed the 1% rule. While the 1% rule is a great pre-screening tool, it's more of a rule of thumb. It doesn't take into consideration all the additional costs of insurance, property management, taxes, etc. The 1% rule is there for you to weed out the bad deals and save you time. So, next time you are considering a possible investment property, be sure to apply the 1% rule. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us Samson Burch. Samson started a career in construction working for a custom home builder at 19 years old. After several years, he moved on to working with a remodeling company where he honed his skills in all areas of residential renovations. At the age of 24, he branched out to operate his own remodeling company, specializing in whole home renovations. At 29, Samson and his wife, Ashley, joined Fortune Builders, an education program where they started their real estate investment journey. Since then, he and Ashley have wholesaled properties, flipped more than 30 homes, and acquired 28 rental doors, and are raising 3 children. Samson is a great friend of mine, and I'm thrilled to finally get him on the show, so welcome, Samson.
Hey, Josie. Thank you.
What's up? 3 kids. Oh, my goodness. You know I'm allergic to children.
No one's allergic to children.
I was a middle school teacher for 16 years. I developed that allergy. That is a true statement. No, I'm kidding.
That's funny.
I'm kidding. But I am so happy to finally get you on the show. We have been crossing paths for a couple years now, and we just spent a whole week together in Jamaica at the Tab Retreat, and I feel like I really got to know you best at the Tab Retreat recently.
We did have a good time at Tab, absolutely. We had a lot of our own personal one-on-one coaching sessions.
Yes, we did, and you are awesome. You are a great person to bounce ideas off of, and I appreciate it so much. But anyway, give us a little background on you. You live in Arkansas. Tell me everything.
Absolutely. So do live in Arkansas, Little Rock area. Most people are familiar with Little Rock. We predominantly wholesale now and pick up rentals. We went from kind of a transition of doing nothing but fix and flips to focusing in 2020 on picking up rentals. In 2 years, we've been able to acquire those 28 doors, which is awesome. We're looking for more more downtown type projects, condos, things like that will have more longevity, and the exit strategies of being able to sell them as individual homes. Personally, we still do residential remodeling for customers and clients, but only high end. So it kind of focuses our time more on investing instead of kind of catering to clientele daily.
So that kind of makes me sweat a little bit working with retail clients. Like, how is that?
It's not bad. Most of the time, everyone who comes to us is through word of mouth. So they're already intrigued. It's kind of like getting a hot lead. They're ready to go. They want the product. They've seen the product, and we just have to deliver.
I mean, do you have issues where they're like, I want a yellow bathroom, and then they can't help pick a color and do all that stuff? Or is it like easy peasy?
Most of the time, it's actually easy peasy.
Nice.
We get kind of an idea of what they want. If a customer doesn't have an idea, I give them 3 options. Like, tell me kind of around what you want. Look on Google, give me some pictures. And even if the pictures don't match anything, we come up with something that matches them. We also work with a kitchen and bath company who has a showroom, and they basically get the job and just send it to us. So it's really hands off as far as that goes.
I love that. I bet it's a really great moneymaker for you too.
It does pay the bills.
Nice. All right. Well, we are here to talk about one of your past projects, and I truly appreciate you being on. And by the way, listeners, it has been months since I've gotten anyone on here to do a past project, and Samson is going to deliver today. I heard a little bit about this one. We're actually talking about 2 properties, but these 2 properties were in a joint venture with someone, correct? Or a business partner?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a joint venture.
Joint venture. So very interesting. I've never done a joint venture. I've been very scared of them. Number 1, I don't like to share profits, but number 2, I'm kind of a control freak. So I am very, you laugh because you know me. Yeah.
Just a little.
Just a little, but it's like having to share decisions with someone else. And I'm married to Vance, who is my business partner, and he lets me make all the decisions mostly. So having to do it with a stranger, I don't know if I can handle it. So let's dive in. And how are we going to do this? We're going to talk about both properties at the same time or split them up?
We'll talk about both properties at the same time because that's exactly how we attack the properties.
Perfect. All right. So let's hear about the actual property. How many beds and baths, what year it was built, along with anything special to the property, etc. So let's hear about the actual houses.
Sure. 504 Ash and 54 or 524 North Fillmore in Little Rock. Both were built before 1940. So
I'm the one with the open drink, by the way. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know, and I don't even drink, and I haven't drank in months. So it's just my ignorance. I'm sorry.
No worries.
But
so they were
anyway,
born before 1940. Okay, go ahead.
They were built before 1940, so they had the typical 1940 problems. Old wiring that has probably been somewhat updated throughout with a bad handyman putting some Romex with some knob and tube and those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Fillmore wasn't as bad as Ash. Fillmore was kind of a little more cookie cutter kind of deal. But Ash Street was the classic, real thick log beams underneath that were like square 6-inch by 20-inch on concrete pillars made of rock and stone and brick and nothing. It was pretty awesome to even work on this house, but the foundation alone was not conventional on either one of them.
Logs. Holy cow. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you find these properties?
A buddy of mine who has been a friend for probably about 15 years or so was wanting to get into real estate, knew I had been doing real estate, knew I knew how to do construction, and he acquired these properties through a for sale by owner situation. And didn't have the capital to take them down, didn't really feel comfortable doing them himself, but wanted to team up with me so maybe we could do something because he did have an eye for design.
Nice.
He did have a little bit of capital, so because I knew my lender well, I was able to negotiate the terms for the purchase, and then he and I negotiated terms for our agreement to come up with funds equally to do the rehabs.
So you're talking about capital. So I want to skip to the financing part of this. How did you finance it? Are you providing your own capital, or did you use, say, a hard money lender?
I use private money lender, the
Okay.
same one that I've always used. This deal, he's a lawyer, so if that tells you anything about how he operates, he likes control. And so whenever him and I would kind of do deals together, he would do the property in his name and we would split the profits. This was years ago, so we don't do that anymore. But anyway, that's how we usually did it. And if with this deal, because it was me and my business partner or my partner on this joint venture, he did what's called a land sale contract, meaning the lender takes the title, but then he does a contract with the investor, my partner and I, for basically rights into the property, equitable interest in the property, and we pay him a fee, which was, I think, 12% on the money.
Okay, this is a little mind-blowing to me because I literally only use private money lenders or hard money lenders, and this is totally different. So break that down a little bit more. So what does the closing look like?
So the closing's really not difficult. We've done it even so, like a property on MLS. You buy it on MLS. I'm buying it under my business name.
Okay.
As like always, whenever you're doing a property, you're trying to buy as an investment property, you do it as an LLC. Okay.
Right.
Before we go to title, because we're paying cash, they typically don't care if we're like, okay, we're going to take title as a different company.
Okay.
Even with an MLS transaction, they're like, hey, you know what? We're going to buy this property, but we're going to take it, title under this particular person was Christie Properties LLC. And even if we do that on the back end, we've never had any problems at closing.
And this lender, this attorney, he would take 50% of the profits?
So only whenever him and I would do a deal.
Okay.
That's how we structured it. I would provide basically the grunt labor, the management, the know-how, collect the deal, gather the deal, acquire the deal, and he would lend the money at no charge. But when we sold it, he got 50%.
Okay, so that's kind of like a JV situation.
A little bit more hands off,
Right.
And that's how I built up my relationship with him. To kind of this point. This was a little bit of a pivot point for me and him where he wasn't in the deal at all, only as an investor.
And then you and your JV partner for these two deals, you paid him interest then at this point. Correct.
I paid my lender interest 12%, and me and my JV partner funded the full rehabs.
Oh, okay. So the lender just funded the purchase price.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. Now it's all clicking because you're talking about bringing in your own money here. So you have a private money lender lending on the purchase price, 100% of the purchase price.
Correct.
At 12% interest. And then you all are throwing in your own money for the renovation.
Correct.
Perfect. Gotcha. All right. So let's go back. What was the asking price? And then what did you actually pay?
I think the asking price for Ash was 150, and that's what we paid. And the asking price for Fillmore was like 125, and we paid 118.
Oh, okay. All right. So a little bit of negotiation there. And what were the estimated ARVs for these properties?
The after repair values for Ash was $550K, and the after repair value for Fillmore was $375K.
Okay. Go back to the 500. What was the purchase price on that one?
$150K.
And 550 was the ARV?
Yes, and that was because we added 1,400 square foot to the property.
Wow. Goodness
Same
gracious.
with Fillmore. We added about 1,200 square feet to the property.
Whew. All right. And what were the estimated repairs at time of purchase?
So when we began, we thought Ash would cost about $180K to renovate it. Put the extra 1,400 square foot on it, which was basically a pop top.
Okay.
The Fillmore house.
So let's back up for a second. So the top. So it was started as a 900 square foot home. You pop the top to make it an 1,800 square foot home?
No, it started at about a 1,500 square foot home, and we went out the back about 10 feet and then up.
Gotcha.
The second story. So we added it was almost 2,800 square feet when we were finished.
Gotcha. I've I've popped the top before. I think it's such a great, you're not changing the foundation, anything. You just have to make sure the foundation actually works for it. So I love that. All right. And then the other one, what was the estimated repair costs?
On Fillmore, it was 125,000 was what we estimated at the front end. I think the house was about 1,000 square feet, maybe a little bit more. It had already been added on several times. We should have just demoed it, but that's another story. It's actually a pretty good relevant. So if you are a remodel contractor or you are the owner and your jurisdiction, everyone's different, of course, city to city, state to state. But in my state, you can't demo a house and then build from the ground up unless you have a actual builder's license.
Okay. Or could you hire someone to do that for you? Or
you could, but then you're giving up a lot of control and then you're at the whim of the GC. Gotcha. Me being a GC, which was one of the main keys of even doing any kind of rehabs and flips in my life, was I have control of the speed of the property. And so as long as I leave up 2 exterior walls, I can do whatever I want with it. Right. I can take it down to nothing. And as long as I got 2 exterior walls, I can add 3,000 square feet to it. It doesn't matter. So
listeners, what he's saying is when you have a property that should just be torn down, you can leave up, and in North Carolina, you're in Arkansas. In North Carolina, it's just one wall has to remain. And it really could just be like a porch. So right. You keep the one wall and then rebuild everything else. And that also helps you to avoid, well, in your situation, it was having a builder's license. But in North Carolina, it helps you from not having to do new build permits as opposed to renovation permits, which are a lot cheaper. So just clarifying that point. Thank you for that, because it's different from state to state. So this is a great perspective. 2 walls, that's interesting. And next question here is, what was your projected timeline versus the actual timeline?
So the projected timeline, because we were attacking these properties at the exact same time, we were figuring at most 4 months to get them all done.
Wow. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So you're adding all this square footage within 4 months. All right. And the actual timeline?
So the actual timeline for Fillmore took about 5 months to get finished. Mm-hmm. We were attacking Ash also, but total it took about 9 months.
Okay. Still, that's very, very impressive. We are just like molasses here in North Carolina. We're so slow. All right. So the next question here is, were there any surprises? So this is where I want to hear how this partnership worked out.
Yeah. So, my goodness, surprises. The biggest problem that we ran into with the partnership. Okay. So this being a buddy of mine, I didn't vet him as well as I should have. I knew he was a little squirrely and kind of loosey-goosey and not reliable in some essence as a friend. I didn't realize that transitioned into business, and it did very badly. So when it come down to, because these 2 properties, one took 5 months, one took 9 months, the biggest hiccup ended up being is he ran out of money.
Gotcha.
So we're putting in a lot of money in these properties simultaneously.
And this was, you said 125 for one and then 180 for the other?
And we ended up spending more than that on both. Yeah.
And by you mean you spent more on both? Well,
in essence, yes. It ended up being, instead of 50-50 on the money, it ended up being more 70-30.
Yikes.
And my mentality is, it's going to get done. I don't care how it's going to get done. I'm going to make it happen. And so the fortunate thing is because we had this in a land sale contract, I was able to creatively use my self-directed 401k to lend him money to then pay for the renovation.
Interesting. So let's just dabble on that for a second. So I'm a big fan of self-directed IRAs, your 401ks. Is that the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. And for us personally, so we literally just took a loan against our 401k, our self-directed 401k. And shout out to my girlfriend, Amanda Holbrook, because she's the best. Whoop, whoop. So how it's done is you can borrow from your own self-directed IRA up to 50,000 or 50% of what's in there, whichever is less. So if you have 120,000 in there, you can still only borrow 50. If you have 80,000 in there, you can only borrow 40, which is half, and that's less. So that's actually smart for you to lend to him, because you could probably lend more out of your self-directed IRA to somebody else.
Correct. You can lend 100% of it.
Right.
Absolutely. Exactly. And because I'm not the owner on title, there's no red flag to anybody that it's an internal self-direct.
Very smart, because the person on title was the attorney, correct?
Correct.
Gotcha. Oh, I love that. That is very, very smart. We lend to other investors out of our self-directed IRA all the time. It's just one of those things where I know their education, they're vetted, and that's who we use our private money for. And it's a great tool to have a self-directed IRA to grow your retirement account. And anyway, enough said about that. So let's keep going here. So surprises. Let's finish with this.
Not only did he not hold up his end of the bargain, one of the properties, actually, when we went to sell it, we actually sold it in like 3-4 days of being on the market. Like almost, it wasn't even on the market kind of deal.
What year was this?
2018.
Okay, so it was it wasn't like 2020 where things were flying off within hours.
No.
So this is great. Yeah.
2018, we sold it in a few days, which, I mean, to be honest, that wasn't abnormal for most of our properties. We were pushing comps and everything. So if a property went more than 30 days for us, that was actually a problem back in 2018.
Gotcha.
2019 sucked for us, but I digress. So we go to sell this property and they do their inspection, and lo and behold, the back corner foot of literally 1 foot by 1 foot corner is in the 100-year floodplain. So we got to get an elevation cert and all these things. And they're like, it doesn't go to the house, but because it's still in that corner, that person's got to get flood insurance according to their lender. So we're like freaking out because we want to get $375. The buyer's paying $375, but now they got to deal with this flood insurance thing. And then we were like, look, we went back to the person we bought it from, because they had actually listed on the MLS. So they had an agent representing them, and in their disclosure didn't say anything about the floodplain. So we go back to that agent, and the agent's a pretty high level agent in our area, and he grills them and he goes through, and it's never flooded there, never ever happened, not going to happen, that kind of deal. It's only there because whatever. There was like a small drainage creek that went behind it. So of course it would probably, because of that, is why that corner of the property had any kind of flood policy or floodplain restriction on it. Funny story. 2 months after we sell it, it flooded up to the bottom plate of the house.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Fortunately, they had the flood insurance, but literally it flooded up to the front porch. It was insane. And actually that flood rezoned that whole area from called Hillcrest to Floodcrest.
Oh my God. Floodcrest. Wow. And so listeners, I had a very similar situation, except mine was a deck, and it was literally a deck post that was in the flood zone. And so what we did was we offered flood insurance for a year, and it wasn't too bad, but that's what got us through that deal. So how did you fix the situation with the buyers of this property?
They just accepted it and bought the property, and we moved on. And like I said, it was just a freak week of torrential rain. And it was like, wow, that's crazy.
So when you go to list a property and it's in the floodplain, it just makes it harder to sell. So when listeners, as you're out there looking for properties, if it's in a flood zone or floodplain, make sure you're checking your county websites, etc. Just think twice about purchasing it, because it can be a tough sell on the back end. All right. So the partnership goes south. Anything else you want to add about the partnership before we go into final numbers here? No,
that was, in a nutshell, it just got worse. So we sell Fillmore, because it only took us 5 months to get it done. And, we still had another about 3 or 4 months on Ash, and we get the money back. So now, again, we're blowing and going on Ash to finish it. We get down to the end, and it's the same situation. He runs out of money again. So, again, I had to creatively dip into my 401k, lend him money. We get the project done. And even though I paid more on both properties in income and my own personal time there, I still split the profit with him 50-50, and I shouldn't have.
No, you shouldn't have. Wow.
I shouldn't have at all. But because I knew the guy knew my friends and friends of friends, and I was like, you know what? It's fine.
That's your integrity right there. I mean, yes, you're a friend of mine, but I don't know if I would have been as nice as you.
No, it was a bad deal, and I would never do it again. I said I'd never do it again, and I have not done it again.
So did you have a contract with him?
I did. And the contract, when we first started, I had it at 60-40. And because I had more experience, and I went through a long list of reasons, and we bantered back and forth on that. And he's like, no, man, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. And he had a lot of more responsibilities for me to agree to the 50%, which was, you got to get 3 bids for everything we're going to do.
Right.
I got my guys. I want you to go out and see if we can get it done less expensive.
Right.
And he wasn't doing it. You got to be hands-on on the property when you need your hands-on the property. And he wasn't doing it. You got to pay your portion of the rehabs, and he wasn't doing it. So me just going ahead and moving past it and paying him his 50% is just me moving on with life.
So and by the way, huge of you to do that. I probably would have not been so nice. So for the listeners out there listening, how can they protect themselves from not being in a situation like this?
Definitely, I could have sued him and really gone down to it in line item, but the cost of doing that, right, even though we had a contract, it wouldn't have benefited anybody, to be honest. And it would have burned a bridge probably with several other friends because I burned him so badly or whatever, regardless of how justified I was. It just wasn't the right move to make. So if anyone wants to get into a deal with somebody or is curious about partnering with somebody, they really need to vet the individual and vet themselves. I don't play well with others. And I found that out and knew that before I even got into this joint venture, that I don't play well with others, and still did it anyway. If I don't have the control, like if you're a control freak or you want things a certain way, sub things out, but don't let the control of the job go away.
All right. So important question here. Are you still friends with this guy?
Was until a few months ago. And again, that's a whole nother story.
Oh, all right. But after this deal, you were friendly for a while?
Yeah. After this deal, I organized a yearly guys trip for skiing, and he came to it and everything was fine. Now, it's always been a little weird between us since then because he knows he messed up. And when we get around friends, they all know how he is and they know it wasn't me, kind of deal.
Right.
But, we still talk occasionally. Or did.
You are a bigger person than I am. So, all right, let's wrap this up here. Let's go through some final numbers.
Absolutely.
So your estimated repairs were 125 and 180 or something. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then what were your actual repairs?
Actual repairs, it took us $230,000 to do Ash. Yeah.
And the other one?
160.
Because people never go over.
Oh, no. And I'm a licensed contractor, and I can get stuff cheaper than a lot of people. Like literally the Home Depot lady gives me 10% off just for showing up. Okay. So I was getting it as cheap as it can get.
Oh my goodness. That hurts. Ugh. All right. What is we already know your interest that you paid was 12%, but it was just for the purchase price. Correct.
So it's 12% on 150 and 12% on 118. So it ended up being about, I wrote it down somewhere. Where is it? I think it was like almost $30,000
okay,
in interest.
But when you take a loan from your self-directed IRA, are you paying interest on that?
So the way because it was unique,
yes,
I wrote in the promissory note to my partner that it was 50% interest.
Oh,
So basically, if I loaned him 30, he owed me like, or, 15. And so I put it in there so that basically all that money, whenever we got paid, had to go back in chunks. So half my profit I was able to shelter in my self-directed IRA.
so by 50%. So if you lend him 30, are you getting 45 back?
Getting 15.
So, you're only getting 15 back.
Well, I'm getting the full amount. I'm getting what I lent him plus.
Right. So, which would be 30 plus 15, which is 45.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, so again, listeners, when you lend out of your self-directed IRA, any profit that you make on it has to go back into your self-directed IRA. Am I correct in saying that?
Yep, absolutely.
So that was genius to put that extra 50% on there.
Mm-hmm.
Interest. Whew. I like that. Very, very good. All right. What were your holding costs on these projects?
The commissions and holding costs there's 22 grand total for the properties. I believe that was the interest basically, was what I thought it was 30, it was 22 grand. And then it cost us $45,000 to sell them in agent fees.
And the closing costs. And by the way, your first property you said sold in 3 days. What about the second property?
It took like 3 months.
Woo, why is that?
Higher price point, that kind of deal, I guess. I don't know.
And then when you got ready to sell, did you list it at your original, what you determined as your after repair value?
We did.
Okay. So then what was the actual sales price on the properties?
We sold Ash for $525K.
And that was the one that was, your ARV was 550?
550. Yep.
Okay. And then the other one?
We sold the other one for exactly what we thought, 375.
Well, that's rare. So very, very good. And drum roll, what was your total profit minus his stuff? You personally?
So total profit on the properties was 172K divided by 2. So
wow. Gosh, I bet that hurt to give him half of that.
It did, but you know what? It is what it is.
It is.
The benefit, the other benefit to that was though, as I was able to shelter most of my profit in my self-directed because of the way we did it.
Very, very smart. And that money you get to take out when you turn, what is it, 65 and a half, 62 and a half, something,
I think 59 and a half. You
59.
start taking dry. Yeah, you start taking draws and stuff off of it.
So you're just building your retirement account through this deal. I think that's fantastic. Samson, this was such a great learning opportunity, especially for the listeners. And what advice would you give the listeners if they're considering getting into a joint venture with someone?
Just vet the individual.
But you knew this guy for 15 years.
I didn't know him in business. So how someone is when they're drinking and hanging out with you is not how they are whenever the stress is on the line, the job's on the line, people are on the line, things got to get done. So how they do one thing is how they do everything, and just know that.
So well said. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know the listeners are appreciating everything that you shared there. The second half of the podcast is what makes Samson a badass. And I use the acronym BADASS. And the first letter is B for book. What's a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
First book that I can really recall that kind of started me on the mindset change was Keller Williams, the one thing. And the phrase in it is, what's the one thing I can do today? By doing so will make everything else easier or, not needed. And it's simple. It's a very simple thought that you can have a day by figuring out what that one thing is that by doing it makes everything else easier or not needed. It's like, wow.
And by the way, it's Gary Keller who runs Keller Williams, but Gary Keller's the author of that book. Is that correct? Gary Keller?
Mm-hmm.
Is that his first name?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, great book. And yes, the one thing, focus. I love that. All right. The first A in badass is advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
When I first started in carpentry, an old man told me, you're only good as a carpenter as you are at fixing your mistakes.
It's not measure twice and cut once or something.
No, it's not measure twice, cut once. That was a nail on the head for me.
Is that a carpenter joke?
Yeah.
All right. I love that. An old man once told me. What is the advice again? Say it again, because I just went straight to the measure once, cut twice.
He said that you're only as good a carpenter as you are at hiding your mistakes.
I love that. Is carpentry like your area of expertise?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's where I started. Trim work, hand carpentry, building things, that kind of stuff. And it's kind of ventured out more into problem solving, because that's basically what renovating homes is problem solving. And now it's in other areas.
My carpenters are like magicians. I'm like, hey, can you do this? And I keep saying them because they're so nice. And I'm like, you can tell me no on occasion. Hey, guys, can you build a fence? Oh, yes, we can build a fence. Can you guys do this? Oh, yeah. I'm like, you're allowed to say no at some point. But carpenters, magicians. That's all I got to say. All right. The D in badass is drive. What drives Samson to be successful?
I think providing for my family an absolute abundant life. I didn't have a lot when I was growing up. I know my wife didn't have a lot when she was growing up. And we both strive to have our children live a higher quality life than what we did.
And how old are your kids?
I have an 18-year-old, I have a 9-year-old, and I have an 18-month-old.
That is a span right there. Oh, my goodness. All right. Woo! Thank you for reminding me to take my birth control. I appreciate that. All right. The second A in badass is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
I actually just accomplished one this year, and it's changed kind of how I look at things. I thought when I'd accomplished it, I would be like on top of the world, and I was just kind of meh. So I'm kind of shifting on an ultimate goal now, and that's to generate $1 million in cash in the next year.
Whew. And okay, so go back to you accomplished it and then it was meh.
I wanted to be a millionaire on paper.
Okay.
And we got there. And so it was like, meh, I don't feel any different. So then we're like, all right, well, it's got to be in the bank then. That's what we're missing.
Interesting. Because a lot of people have that with goals. And I'm going through a weight loss journey right now, down 35 pounds, by the way.
Whoop.
Whoop, whoop. But a lot of people, I can remember when in my single days, I lost I think it was like 65 pounds at one point. And when I got to my goal weight, I'm like, it's going to be perfect. I'm going to find the man of my dreams. And then you get there and it's like, meh, doesn't happen. So do you have any, you just kind of shifted your goal to make it. So what's going to make this one not be meh when you actually have cash, 1 million?
I think a lot of it has to do with, maybe the focus that I put on my time. My time is extremely valuable. I used to work about 100 hours a week, and I've shrunk that down to probably 20.
Wow.
And it took time to do that, and it took discipline to do that, and still get the amount of things that we want done a day done. It just takes a shift in the mindset of why is something important. And I think having that kind of stability in a solid cash reserve is what we've been missing to be able to pivot to the things we actually want to do. Because a lot of times we're only doing what we need to do to pay a bill, to move a property, to whatever it is.
So what do you actually want to do?
I actually want to do a lot of nothing and sit on a beach or go and travel and hell.
Snowboarding.
I want to do more impactful things. I like doing things like this to be able to help those who are just getting into something that I know a lot about.
Right.
Maybe travel around and speak more, do a little bit more coaching, focus on educating my children by traveling instead of like through books. I like
experiences.
Exactly. I like snowboarding a lot, and I'd like to be able to go from December to April and enjoy an entire season as opposed to having to go out for a week at a time here and there.
Well, that is a fantastic goal, and I'm sure it's not going to be meh when it happens. So, all right, the first S in badass is systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
The team. My team is probably the biggest system I have. Being able to literally leverage the individuals around me, and know that they're going to basically fill the need that I have, whether it be a closing company, an insurance company, a contractor, my wife. It's everyone around me is based off the system of a team. And when we put into place everything that we wanted for our real estate business, I didn't realize how much that a team was needed just outside your individuality. And that was key to how we've been able to be successful, is constantly implementing others into how we do business.
Who do you think, besides your wife, is the most important team member?
Oh my.
Because I asked this, Samson, because I need to hire a team and start getting things out there. First person I want to hire is an assistant, because I just have too much going on. So who would you say is your most important team member?
I would say outside of what my wife does, it would probably be my investors.
Okay.
Because knowing
your private money lenders.
Correct.
Okay.
Knowing that I can basically put in an offer for however much a property is, regardless of if it's 100,000 or $1 million, and know that we can get it closed is huge.
And they're great team members to have, because you're building their wealth by
Absolutely.
being a team member to them. So wonderful. Thank you for elaborating on that. All right. The final S in badass is success. What does success mean to you?
I think it means happiness. The joy that you feel by accomplishing something, whether it was something that brings you actual money or just brings you just pure, like, I am happy to be doing this. I think that is what success is.
Well, I am happy to call you friend. I appreciate you finally coming on this on the podcast. I had COVID for a while there. Like, Jen, when are we doing this? So thank you. And I was the hang up for a while there. So you are fantastic. How can the listeners find you if they want to reach out?
Absolutely. I'm on Facebook. I do a lot of posting. So all you got to do is do a little bit of search at Samson Burch, and you'll find me. We have a website. saxhomes.com.
Sex Homes?
SAX.
Oh, SA.
Easy there, killer. I think it has a direct link for Facebook there. It takes us to our page, and then again, you can link through that. As long as your mind's not in the gutter and you type in the wrong thing. I think those are the only two things I got going on as far as social media. I'm not very active.
Well, I appreciate you so much, and thank you for being here. This has been great, and so many great nuggets to share with the listeners. So you're fantastic. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, listeners, that is all. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.